put options, a downside. So don't feel like I wouldn't get caught up in one stock to the point where you think that one stock can just save you and change your life. That's not the way to invest. You want to invest in different companies anyway. But also, if you do invest in a company that really worries you, you can hedge that risk. You can protect yourself by getting some insurance by buying a put option. All right. So let me see. Let me hop into the next question. What is the VIX? The VIX is what they call the fear index, and it measures basically how nervous investors are. So, so basically, if you were to like look up the definition of the VIX, I'm gonna read this to you. It says it's a ticker symbol and the popular name for the Chicago Board of Options Exchange Volatility Index, a popular measure of the stock market's expectation of volatility based on S&P 500 index options. What does that mean? Well, basically, it's sort of like when you have movies where horses start running because the thunderstorm is coming, or horses and dogs can sense a tornado's coming. Well, the VIX is kind of the same way. It's the investor's perception of the coming storm. What do they think that is going to happen in the market? Do they feel like volatility is on the horizon? Are they really worried, etc.? So the VIX kind of lets you know how people are feeling. It lets you know how, because remember, with risk is a funny thing. There is real risk, there's perceived risk, and then there's risk where you don't even know that there's a risk. So real risk might be, I don't know, my hometown in Louisville, there was a big mass shooting, right? So real risk could be me checking on my loved ones in Louisville, which I did to make sure they were okay because there was a shooting that happened in Louisville, right? That's real. There's a real reason for me to do that. Perceived risk is my mother-in-law. We went to Hawaii. We begged our mother-in-law to come with us. She won't go because she thinks planes are going to crash. She thinks that any plane she gets on is going to fall out of the sky. It doesn't matter that I can show her data that says, look, a plane crash hasn't happened for years in the United States. Like, there's no planes anywhere you can find that are commercial airlines that are just falling out of the sky. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. You could tell her that driving is more dangerous than flying. It doesn't matter. She just, in her mind, has decided that flying will kill her. So there's nothing I can do, right? Now, a risk that you're not aware of, that you should be aware of, is kind of like the risk that FTX is going to go bankrupt because Sam Bankman-Fried is taking people's money and doing things with it he shouldn't be doing. That was what is called a black swan event. That's something you just didn't expect, because Sam Bankman-Fried was, a year and a half ago, I guess, maybe even a year ago, one of the most trusted names in all of finance. Like, his name was starting to become like a Charles Schwab or an E.F. Hutton. He was seen as the savior of the crypto space. So to have somebody go from being the savior to being the devil is just shocking, absolutely shocking. It's even more shocking than watching the fall of Bill Cosby, so who went from America's dad to whatever people see him as now, right? So ultimately, when you think about risk, you think about it that way. So the VIX measures the perception of risk, and the perception may not always equal the reality, right? So sometimes investors are scared and they don't have a reason to be scared, and sometimes they're not scared when they should be scared. In 2020, experts were scared. People like me were very scared. We said, oh my God, stocks are going way up and people are making money overnight, and it is not going to stay this way, right? But at that time, nobody else was scared. The market wasn't scared. People were investing in anything. They would buy any kind of crappy crypto that anybody was offering, right? So this was kind of the mood at that time. And so the VIX is a measure of the perception of risk, but not always the reality. Right now, one of the things I want to mention too, is something that I wanted to talk to you guys about, that I saw in an article I read, where they were talking about how people in my generation, Generation X, are not saving for retirement properly and not saving money in general, depleting their savings because we're taking care of adult children. And they said this is significant. They said a large percentage of Generation Xers have 20-something-year-old kids that are living in their house, or maybe they're not living in their house, but they're taking care of these kids. And what that's doing is that is depleting your ability to save for your own future. Most Americans are not prepared for retirement. I have no idea what a lot of people are going to do, because when you get 75 years old, you don't want to get up and go to work every day. But I guess people think they're going to work until they die. I have no idea what the plan is. Um, so one of the things I wanted to mention really quickly is that that there are ways to prevent this. I actually, in my book, the Ten Commandments of Black Economic Power, I talk about that actually in terms of how you set that economic standard in your family and how you sort of train your children when it comes to their own economic intelligence and the expectation of how they're supposed to show up as members of the family. So one rule that I strongly believe in that I try to practice with my own children is that nobody should show up as a liability or a burden to other people on a regular basis. The only people that can be a consistent liability to others in this family are people who are elderly, children, or disabled. If you're elderly or you're a child or you're disabled, then all bets are off. People have to show up and make sure that you're okay, and that's the way the world works. But if you are 26 years old and you are a healthy young man, um, there's always something that you can do. And if you are behaving as a disabled person where you're not helping the family and you're a burden on the family, that could be because someone disabled you. Maybe your mother disabled you because she's babying you, into adulthood, or maybe your father disabled you, or whatever. But either way, um, what you have to understand is that you have to think about your family's economic viability as as an entity, or almost like a plant that you have to water, or an animal that you have to feed. And if you are not able to feed and pour into this thing, then this thing is not going to grow. It's not going to survive. It's eventually going to be depleted. It's going to die. So everybody that's showing up in the family, think about it like gathering for a family picnic or something, or a family reunion. If everybody shows up and they're expecting to eat, but nobody brings any food, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? What if everybody shows up ready to eat and not one single person brings a plate? Nobody brings food. Nobody brings money. Everybody shows up with their hand out. Is that going to work? Is that family picnic going to even survive or even occur? It can't happen, right? So what happens when some people show up with their hand out and they're expecting to eat, but they're not bringing a plate, right? Well, that means just mathematically that in order for me to eat and I brought nothing, someone else is going to have to bring more food than they actually eat themselves. Somebody's going to have to feed me, basically. Somebody's going to have to take up the burden that I've put on the group to feed me, even though I brought no food to feed anybody else, right? So that's a mindset, right? And ultimately, the rule that I have in our family is everybody contributes. Everybody can do something. If you have any extra income, you can do something. If you have any extra free time, you can do something. So if you're in the house and you're not a child, you're not a senior citizen, and you're not disabled, the question becomes, what are you going to do to make sure this family as an entity is going to benefit from the fact that you're here? What are you bringing you're showing up to the picnic? You must bring a plate. You must do something. So that means if you can't contribute financially, then can you sweep the floor? Can you cut the grass? Can you take out the trash? Can you drive the kids around? Like what is it that you have to do? And this is a conversation we had to have with our oldest son. He came home. He's over the age of 18, and I just said, look, man, you could be here, but you're not a child. So you're gonna have to contribute to this household. So I said, you're gonna work for me. I'll pay you. I'm gonna take a certain amount of money out for rent. Um, and when he complained, I said, well, okay, this is a few $100s a month. I want you to go out and see if you can find you an apartment for $600 a month. Good luck with that. Show me what kind of apartment you can get for $600 a month. Um, then there's also, and then we talked about some other things he can do, right? And so what I said to him, what I explained was, I said, the adult child living in the house is not the problem. Um, the problem is the perspective that you have about that adult child living in the house. So if the adult is living in the house and they're contributing nothing, but they're taking things, right? They're taking food, they're taking resources, then that person becomes a burden. They are a liability. But if their mindset shifts and they say, okay, let me see what I can do. You know what? I only make $2,000 a month, but I'll give you $500 a month. Well, that makes a difference. Now, mama can pay a couple, she can pay a light bill, the cable bill, maybe a car note with this money. So now she sees you as a liability, or excuse me, as an asset and not a liability, right? And now you being in the house is a net benefit to the house, right? You're not feeling like, okay, I got to get this person out of here because they're a freeloader and I can't carry around all these people. I remember hearing my father have a really hard conversation with a relative when I was a little kid, and what was going on was you had a relative that was calling our house for money. I'm not gonna say which one it is because I got family members that sometimes hear what things I talk about, and and they were asking for money, and he said, wait a minute, you're asking me to help you pay the bills, but you got three grown men living in that house. He said, I will not chip in one single penny to pay any of those bills until you either move them all out of the house or they all chip in on some level as well. They chip in an equal amount because there's no excuse for you to have three grown men in the house that are not contributing to paying the bills. Because if all those guys got together and said, we're all going to give $500 a piece, everybody wins. Suddenly, mama's got $2,500 a month or $2,000 a month to help get things paid for. And you've got a place to live for just $500. So everybody can win. So this whole phenomenon of parents sort of not being able to save for retirement because they're taking care of adult children, or they can't save, and because they've got this 30-year-old who can't get it together. Um, I don't think it has to be all or nothing. I think the question that you want to ask yourself is everyone being an asset to the family? In fact, that's literally number one of the 10 commandments of Black economic power, is that if you want to build a wealthy family, every family member must be trained to be an asset, and this training must occur from birth. You should not have anybody sort of mentally seeing themselves as someone who's allowed to simply be a freeloader, where everybody owes me something and I owe the world nothing. Or like even little things like I forgot what it was. There was something I know what it was. I was talking about this. These are all financial lessons. Remember, the world gives you the best financial lessons ever. Roger, do anybody remember Roger from Zap? I talked about this not too long ago. Roger from Zap. My wife was we saw this really great interview he did with Donnie, what's his face, from Video Soul, and he was doing his whole computer love thing, and it sounded really cool. And so, does anybody know how he died? Well, Roger from Zap died. He had a business with his brother Larry. His brother Larry, I guess, got upset. Larry borrowed money from him. Larry was wrapped up in drugs. Larry didn't want to pay him back, and Larry ended up shooting Roger and killing him. Right. And I said, this is such an interesting example of financial trauma, as well as a lot of other factors, that we've talked about in class. Right. One is drugs. I've talked about how drugs are the worst thing that ever happened in the Black community. If you're smart, you'll just teach your kids stay away from it as much as possible. But then two, there is the whole idea that he borrowed money from him and then somehow felt like it wasn't his job to pay him back, right? That's a form of financial trauma that affects how much you can trust other people, right? So what eventually happens is you create this toxic culture because your own relative stole from you, your own brother stole from you. He borrowed money, promised he was going to pay it back, and didn't pay it back. So it's like somebody coming up with a gun on the street and taking your wallet from you, right? So your own sibling stole from you. So what that does is it creates a toxic space where people say, see, that's why I don't loan money to relatives. And that's completely the opposite of what financially healthy families are able to do. In financially healthy, well-to-do families, they say, oh, I love loaning money to relatives because I can help them go to the next level, and they always pay me back because in our family, we have a code of behavior and a code of conduct where we don't just borrow money from each other and not pay each other back. We operate with a level of integrity. So anybody who borrows money from someone that you allegedly love, and doesn't feel any obligation to pay them back. Doesn't even call and say, gosh, I don't have your money, but I promise you I'm going to get it. I'm doing everything I can. It's going to be a little late, but the money's coming, I promise. Right? Just that sort of energy. That's that makes me wonder, like, do you really even love or respect the person that you borrow money from? How can you borrow that money, not pay it back, have no remorse, and just move on as if nothing happened? Oh, I get it. You are okay with the idea that you're a liability to your loved ones, you're a burden for other people, but you're not expecting, you wouldn't expect them to be able to come to you and be a burden on you, right? You're not expecting to fill the void that you're creating. You're creating a hole. You're willing to create a liability, but you're not bringing an asset. And one thing about a balanced portfolio or balanced books or whatever, balanced accounting, is that every liability must be matched with an asset. And when the liabilities exceed the assets, that's when you have a failing institution. Why do you think Silicon Valley Bank no longer exists? Well, because the liabilities exceeded the assets. FTX does not exist as an entity because the liabilities exceeded the assets. Do you get what I'm saying? So in your family, with the family as an economic entity will fail if the liabilities exceed the assets. The liabilities and the assets must match one another. So when you're talking about how you sort of view each other financially, and again, this is all, I lay all this out in my book. That again, that's the first commandment literally was always be an asset to your family. And this is something that has to be taught to kids as a core value when they're young. So how does that work out long term? So that means that so the kid who sees himself as an asset to the family is always thinking, how, how can I help out? What can I do? I don't have any money, but I can work. I can pick grandma up from her doctor's appointments. Like what can I do? Right? That's the opposite of the kid who's always showing up with their hand out, saying, "Mama, mama, mama, please, 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 give me, give me, give me." Right? Or you owe me, or get mad at you because you won't give them something that they never earned in the first place. Right? Or the perpetual victim. Like everybody's doing me wrong, and all this other nonsense. Right? What else does that do? A child who thinks of himself as an asset to the family is going to go out into the world and want to be successful on behalf of the family and bring that back to the family. They take pride. Like I will tell you, I take tremendous pride in knowing that I paid off my parents' house. My father's dream was to have his house paid off before he passed. I said, let's get it done. He wanted a new truck. I said, let's go get you a truck, and we're going to get it with cash. So you don't even have a car note. Right? My mother wanted to go on vacation. Mama, where you want to go? Hey, what can I do for you, Mama? Anything I can. Every time I talk to my parents, my first question is there anything I can do? Anything you need? Right? And that is because as a kid, I kind of just bought into this idea. Like, we're a team. It's like a basketball team. Like, you want to help your team score points. Right? So what else does it do when your child is raised to believe that they're an asset to the family? Well, it creates an easier space for you to do things like start businesses together. You have three siblings that all want to be assets to the family. They all trust each other. They all love each other. They all know they're going to come through for each other. They're not financially traumatizing each other. Well, it's much easier for them to get together and say, okay, well, I got $20,000 saved up. I'll pour it into the business. Let's make this thing happen. Right? Because you don't have to overcome this idea of wondering if your loved one is going to steal from you or rip you off or do something irresponsible with the family resources. So being an asset to the family, I think, plays a big part in this. It's critical to consider these ideas, because if you don't, then what will happen is you'll fall into the trap that I saw happen to someone that I actually cared about, where her son was never raised to see himself as an asset. He was always a burden, always a liability, because he was kind of sad and pathetic and always felt like the world owed him something. So his single mother, who was the strong Black woman who took care of everybody, always took care of his financial problems. Anytime he had a problem, she took care of it. And this continued until he was 20, 30, 40, and eventually 50 years old. So now he's 50 years old. His mother's old and tired, and he's coming to the house borrowing money. He's not, she needs her grass cut. She has to call the guy down the street because her son won't do it. or when she has a financial problem, she has nobody she can depend on. And that's how they died. They died like they both kind of, he died, I think she died, and then he died shortly afterward. And it was kind of sad because you sort of saw this weird codependence that never ever came to an end, because he was never led to understand that his job as a man was to be an asset in the lives of the people that he's around. So the last thing I'll lay out here, and again, I'm being a little bit opinionated when I say this, so forgive me if it offends anybody. But one of the things I did say to our son is, I said, your measurement as a man, in my view, should come down to simple things you can ask yourself. And a question I would ask myself as a man is, the people that I'm around, are their lives better or worse because I was there? A man who is irresponsible and reckless with his behavior or whatever, and not accountable, can ruin the lives of a lot of people, ruin the lives of his children, ruin the lives of women, ruin the lives of his friends, etc. Right? You're on drugs, you're doing silly things, you're not responsible, right? You can do a lot of damage. A man who's really on his mission, on his purpose, who understands his power and wants to harness his power in a beneficial way, can be a huge asset. He can boost you up emotionally, he can boost you financially, he can make sure you're well protected, he can make sure that your life is better than it would have been otherwise. I think that's the measuring stick, right? I think that's sort of a values-based way of looking at what it takes to create a financially secure family. If everybody, imagine a family of five where everybody thinks that way. Everybody says, I'm loyal to the family. I want to be an asset. I'm going to make myself the best person I can be so I can show up in my best form to be the best asset I can be. And everything I accomplish, I'm going to pour that right back into this entity called a family. Well, a family like that cannot fail. They cannot fail. They're not going to be on welfare. They're not going to be all broken up and busted up. They're not going to be overtly traumatized. They're going to be successful. They're going to thrive. And retirement becomes a pleasurable experience because you, as a senior citizen, know that these young people you poured into all 20 or 30 years are all now pouring back into you. They're all making sure mama is good. They're making sure daddy gets to the doctor. They're making sure that the house note is paid off. Do you understand what I'm saying? So don't follow into this culture that's out here. A lot of these problems that I saw where families can't retire because they're taking care of adult children, it comes from lazy kids and irresponsible parents who don't really, well, scratch that. I don't want to be mean, because some of you may be in this state and I don't want to make you feel bad. So let me take that back. It comes from us not being at our best and not raising children to be at their best. And the consequences can be absolutely devastating financially. Also, in terms of succession, passing your wealth on to your children. If you don't raise them with certain values in a certain way, then you might as well stop working right now, because what's going to happen is when you leave them all that money that you worked your butt off to acquire, they're just going to waste it and blow it anyway. A person has to have a specific mindset to even know what it means to protect resources. Just like somebody that's growing a flower in a garden has to have a mindset to water that plant a certain way and to feed that plant and love that plant and nurture that plant. If the mindset's not there, if it's somebody who's just going to step on flowers and destroy everything, then it doesn't matter what work you put into it. It's all going to go away anyway. All right, so let me answer a few more of your questions. Have you chosen the day for the All Black National Convention? Maurice, we're almost there. The team is going to let me know this week where our venue is exactly. We're going to be in Atlanta. That much we know. Sometimes we end up waiting a little bit. But thank you for asking that question. If you want to learn more about the convention for this year, you can go to allblacknationalconvention.com. Also, I want to mention that for this year's convention, we want to bring in speakers and panelists that are from the audience. So we're actually going to send out a request for proposals. If you have an idea of topics you'd like to cover, or panels that you think you can be on, or things like that, we're going to give everybody a chance to kind of come in, because we're not really into going and recruiting celebrities and mainstream people. We want people that have good ideas, that care about the community, that want to put Black people first. So that's how we're going to move things. That's one of the adjustments for this year. We're not into the big names and all that. We can make you a big name. We reach 1 million people a week, so we can do that part. We just want you to come with ideas that are going to be beneficial to Black people. All right, so let's see here. Please give us the name of the Health Factors book you read. Oh gosh, Gwen, I'm gonna find it. I don't have it with me. My wife had me download it. I can't remember the name of it. I wish I could remember. I'll find out, Gwen. I apologize. I don't have it in front of me. Let's see. Jamal says Schrodinger was that company you recommended the other day. Schrodinger. Maybe I did. If you log in at the blackstockmarketprogram.com, I put a list of what Dr. Boyce is buying. That may have been one of the companies on that list. I do the research and I find the companies, and some of them I invest in myself, some of them I don't. But these are all companies I would invest in. Sometimes you just deplete your capital and you don't have other things to invest in. But yeah, I think that was one of them. So if you just log in, go to your login, and you should be able to find it there under what Dr. Boyce is buying, theblackstockmarketprogram.com. All right, so let's see. Any suggestions on emerging market ETFs? There's so many of them. You can, if you type in emerging markets and just search for that in your Robinhood app, you can find ETFs, or you can actually Google emerging market ETFs. There's so many out there. Emerging markets are good. Emerging markets are like smaller countries, third world countries, things like that. Those are good places to invest now, because I believe that as the economy recovers, a lot of that wealth is going to rise. What do you think about hydrogen fuel to invest? You know what, Blaine? I never thought about hydrogen much. I don't think I have any investments in that space. I can't actually construct a unique thought on hydrogen right now, just because it's so far out of my consciousness. I have to think about that. So sorry about that. I have nothing to say. um, Terrence, what are your thoughts on the company Hypercharge Networks Corp, HCNWF? Okay. If you have a certain stock you want me to look up, just log in at the blackstockmarketprogram.com and leave the stock, and then I can look it up. And if you did that for last week and I didn't get a chance to get to it this week, just know I'll get to it next week. But yeah, if you just leave it in there, I can look it up for you. Let's see here. You should check out the show Billions, since you like Succession. Yes, I watch Billions too. I know all about that show. It's a great show. Is there a specific time of day you find stocks at their lowest, or best time of day to invest? I don't think there's any specific time of day. It can, they can go up or down at any time of the day. Let's see here. When will we be able to make hotel reservations for the A, B, and C? As soon as we lock down the venue, James, and I'll let you know that soon. Make sure you're on our email list and stuff like that. And if you're not, one way to get on the list very easily and get a lot of free information as well is if you go to boycewatkins.com, I have a list of AI stocks that you can take a look at that I think are going to do well in the future, because this whole AI trend, it's the beginning of a really interesting arms race, the whole AI thing. And if you get that list, then you put in your email, and then I'll send you some stuff. And these are the lists that we let people know what we have going on and stuff like that. And we'll market it extensively once the venue gets locked in. So let's see here. We need to get back to our cultural roots. I agree. Do you consider Forex a good skill to know going forward? I don't really necessarily love Forex investing. I don't hate it. It's just not. It's not a stock market investing is an easy way to make money, because you can set it and forget it, and it's proven, right? Over history, like it's not a zero sum game. Like Forex is a little bit like if I win, you have to lose. Somebody loses when I win. Somebody wins when I lose. In the stock market investing, it doesn't have to be that way. Everybody can win, and you can win with very basic buy and hold strategies. Like Warren Buffett explains it all the time. He shows how what was that investment? The investment was $142 that he made in 1940. That's now worth like hundreds of thousands of dollars right now. It's going to be like $6 million by the year 2030. So ultimately, stock market investing is just a little more stable, consistent, and makes sense. It's simpler. Forex is a little bit like a wild, wild west. It's an important market. It's a necessary market. It's one of the biggest, most liquid markets out here. But it's not so simple to make money. And I don't care what anybody tells you. Don't ever walk into Forex thinking, oh, everybody can make money, or it's just easy. Just do my simple trading strategies and all that. You'll just get frustrated. But if you are into that kind of thing and you want to learn it, I think it's worth learning. I think before digging into Forex, though, I would learn stock market investing and then stock options. I think stock options are the second most fun category to invest in. All right, so those are my thoughts. I'm going to bounce on out, guys. It was great talking to you. I hope this conversation was helpful. Just a reminder, if you want to join us in Houston, I'll be in Houston April 21st for a 2-day Black Wealth Boot Camp. You can find out about that at boycewatkins.com. Also, that list of AI stocks is at my website at boycewatkins.com. And if you want to get the new book, The 10 Commandments of Black Economic Power, it is available. Just get it off Amazon. Amazon will deliver it like overnight, and don't worry about ordering directly from me. You can get it on Amazon. My team will take about a week, to be honest with you. We can't keep up with Amazon. We try, but it's hard. But if you go to Amazon, just punch it in, and it'll get to your house like tomorrow or something. So, so take care, guys, and I hope you have a great day. And don't forget the stock options masterclass starts on Thursday. And I am going to move the date, though, a couple of days because of my father's medical condition. But I will definitely deliver, and we will have a great time, and you will learn a lot. So feel free to, if you'd like to join that, that's also at my website, boycewatkins.com. So have a good day, everybody, and I'll see you guys next week. Take care. Bye-bye.